So this investigation concerns the reasons and modalities through which power has taken in Western societies the form of an economy, that is to say, of a government of men and things. So we'll not speak about power in general, but about a peculiar form of power, the modern form of power, that is to say, government. Of course, I will therefore have to carry on Michel Foucault's inquiries in the genealogy of governments. As you probably know, starting from the mid of the 70s, Foucault began to work on what he called le gouvernement des hommes. So I will carry on and continue his research, but I will also try to dislocate them in a different context. Foucault once wrote that his historical investigations were only the shadow of his theoretical questioning of the present. And I completely share this point of view. Also for me, the historical investigation I have to do are just the shadow cast from my interrogation of the present. And in my case, this shadow becomes longer and reaches back to the very beginning of Christian theology. I will try to show that two paradigms derive from Christian theology, from early Christian theology. Political theology, which grounds in the one God, the transcendence of sovereign power, and this is the new thing, the economical theology, which bases itself on the notion of an oikonomia, an economy conceived as an immanent order, domestic and not property political, of both human and divine life. The first paradigm is juridical or juridical political and will give rise to the modern theory of sovereignty. The second one is managerial and will lead to modern biopolitics up to the present domination of economy and management over all aspects of social life. So the starting point of my investigation was the amazing discovery of the essential role played by the Greek term oikonomia, economy, in the strategy of the theologians who in the 2nd century of Christian era elaborated the doctrine of Trinity. You know that the Greek term oikonomia means the administration of the oikos, the house, and thus Aristotle can write that economy differs from politics in the same way as the oikos, the house, differs from the polis, the city. And that is why in the Aristotelian tradition there is a sharp opposition between economy and politics. From a Greek point of view, politics cannot be reduced to an economy. According to Aristotle, economy is a non-epistemic paradigm, something that is not a science, not an episteme, but a practice, which implies decisions and measures that can be understood only in relation to a given situation or to a given problem. So the best translation of the Greek term is therefore management. And by the way, this is the translation that you can find in the authoritative Greek-English dictionary published by Henry Liddell, who was the father of Alice, the little girl so tenderly loved and immortalized by Lewis Carroll. Yeah, the most authoritative Greek dictionary comes from the father of Alice, Carroll Ellis. Now, why did Christian theologians need this term, It's quite simple. Just when the Trinitarian doctrine begins to be developed, the theologians had to cope with the strong resistance within the Church of a group of reasonable people called the monarchians, that is to say, the partisan of the government of one, who thought, and they were probably right, that the introduction in God of three persons simply meant falling back to polytheism. Oikonomia, economy, is the concept by means of which theologians tried to reconcile in God the unity with the Trinity. Their argument was roughly, I simplify but it's like that, was roughly the following. God, as far as his substance or being is concerned, is absolutely one. But as for his oikonomia, his economy, that is to say, the way he manages the divine house and life, he is three. Just as the master, this was the argument, just as the master of a house can share the administration with the son or with other persons without losing the unity of his power, in the same way, God can trust the management of the world and the salvation of man to his Son, the Christ. St. Paul, in his letters, had spoken, referring to redemption, of an economy of the mystery, an economy of the mystery of the salvation. Now, theologians such as Irenaeus, Hippolytus, and Tertullian reverse this expression, this very important strategic reversal, and speak, referring to the Trinity, of a mystery of the economy. So it's not God's being who is mysterious, its economy, its action, its activity is mysterious. And they distinguished in this sense two logoi, two discourses, the theological or ontological discourse, which concerned God's being, and the economical discourse, which refers to God's action, to the way he manages the government of the world and the history of salvation. You see that the Trinity was introduced not in the beginning, not as a metaphysical doctrine, as it became later after the great church councils, but as an economy, as a managerial device. The hypothesis I'm trying to suggest is that this mystery of the economy has functioned as the hidden epistemological paradigm of modern governance. So I will use theology in order to better understand government. I'm not proposing a return to theology, not at all. I will just use theology to better understand governance. I cannot here bother you with the detailed reconstruction I had to do of this doctrine, which kept the church father busy for centuries. I will just attempt to summarize in a few points the main results of my investigation. So first of all, which kind of activity, which kind of praxis is the economia, economy? What is the inner structure of an act of governance, of the divine management? And why is something such as a government of man possible? So let me analyze this, and I will propose 5 points which summarize in a way the results of my research. So the first point could be called the paradox of divine anarchy. As we saw now, the doctrine of the divine economy was produced in order to save monotheism, but it ended up introducing into God a split, a division between being and action, ontology and economy. I mean that God's action, God's economy, according to the fathers, has